Hi, I'm Ariel. You're watching She Wants the Diction, and today I'm going to be reviewing Halsey's poetry book, I Would Leave Me If I Could. Now, I want to start this video off with a disclaimer that I am not a Halsey Stan. You know, I have nothing against her, but I'm also not really a fan. I feel like I only have one or two songs from her that I really liked or listened to more than once. My favorites from her are probably Castle, Nightmare, Bad at Love, Him and I. Those are really kind of the only songs that I can think of that I really like. But I do like the fact that she seems to be really outspoken for women's rights and, bisexuality and different things like that. So that's really cool. I just feel like her music isn't really my style. And I kind of even forgot that she existed or, that she was queer until I was listening to my gay list, which is gay playlist, to kind of get in the mood for the month of June, which is Pride Month. Then I forgot that she had a couple songs talking about girls, which is pretty rare for a pop star still. So then I remembered that she had her poetry book out that I had seen people talking about last year. And so I was like, oh, I like poetry. Why the hell not make this my first read for Pride Month? So that's what I did. And I read this on ebook through my library. And also I just feel ridiculous because literally I was thinking about doing this review in the shower and I realized that Halsey is an anagram of Ashley, which is her first name. I don't know that I ever knew her name was Ashley, but that just blew my mind. And I feel like that's an obvious thing that everyone just knows, and my slow ass just realized that's the epitome of me. I'm doing a deep dive analyzing her poetry but didn't realize her name was an anagram. I don't know how to explain my brain any better than that. But anyways, I'm gonna be honest, I just gave this book a bad review. I gave it 2 stars. And that is the rating that I give to books that I feel missed the mark in some way or had something significantly wrong with them but don't have no value. That would be 1 star. But I also didn't actively like it, and that would be 3 stars. So if you want to go yay, nay, or meh, I would definitely say nay. I would not say that this poetry collection is really worth your time unless you're a hardcore fan. The reason being that I felt like most of these poems were pretty bad, pretty amateurish, pretty cringy, honestly. And I feel like that's usually going to be the case with a lot of poetry and books that are written by, celebrities. I feel like there were a handful in here, though, that were really, really good, shockingly good. But I don't think it's necessarily worth it to have to wade through all of the bad stuff to get to the good. And one of the things that really pissed me off about this collection is that she tends to enjoy simplistic rhymes within her poetry, which I'm not really into rhyming poetry to begin with, but then it just felt so I don't know how to describe it, just childish and basic. And this is not in any way a diss to her because I think she's a cool person. And I think a lot of these poems, she was very open, and I think if you enjoy confessional poetry that you will really, really like this. Just because a lot of these poems gave an insight into her life that I felt was very moving, but also very sad. One of the reasons that it's sad is I feel like a lot of women have similar experiences to what she talks about in this book. So she has a lot of past trauma, such as rape, sexual abuse, grew up in poverty, bad family life, mom was not attentive, father clearly had anger issues, was violent. She obviously was in some toxic relationships, just a lot of different things like that that I think could be very relatable. And I think overall the whole collection does have this vibe of the kind of, lost teenager in love with the wrong person. And one of the things I do find really interesting is that in a couple of these poems, I noticed that she talks about the differences in being in a relationship with a woman versus being in a relationship with a man. And so I feel like that's an aspect of bisexuality that I don't usually see people talking about a lot, so I really appreciated that she did talk about it here. One of the poems where she talks about this is You Were First. I guess I found it easier for me to charm a man because a woman always crumbled in my hands. And another poem where she does this that I thought was just brilliant, really hit me, was a poem called Powerless. So I think in this, she's on a flight, having a panic attack, and she's thinking about having sex with a man first, a man from her past. And she's talking about how she feels kind of humiliated in that situation. And then it switches and she's having sex with a woman, except she's the partner who's on top. And so she ends the poem with, why is the straight part of me powerless? And I was like, damn, damn, that shit is deep. So I do think there's a different power dynamic when you're in a relationship with a man as opposed to a relationship with another woman. And I think she just perfectly exemplified that here. And that's something that I never see anyone talking about. Kind of how with bisexuality, this is another thing that really annoys me, is that you can be more attracted to one gender or the other. And also being bisexual doesn't mean you're a transphobe and that you can never be attracted to anyone who's, non-binary, doesn't fit on the gender binary, agender, etc. So this is kind of an example of what I felt was cringy writing. This is from her poem called Layers. Thank you for the freckles on your nose that keep me star-crossed, starry-eyed, and then cross-eyed when I'm lying underneath you. And I was like, no. Like, I see what she's trying to do. She's like trying to have wordplay, but it's like corny. I don't know. This is another example of what I feel like is bad writing. It's from the poem called Hereditary. I would love to get a tan line and call you from a landline and maybe hold your hand, crash land in a landmine. It's like, I don't even know what that means. Like, do you want to die? Do you like want out of this relationship? Like, what's going on here? And suicidality, and I think suicidal thoughts and also like body image is a big part of this. And also she's bipolar, so there's a lot of like mood issues and mental health stuff that's kind of discussed. So let's talk about another example of a poem that I felt like was good. There's this one called Onanism that I found really striking. She starts off just kind of like listing things, and you don't really know what the list is because these all kind of seem to be like random and unrelated. After she gets to the end of the list of like things, she says, a pointed toe, a cramping calf, disgusted in the aftermath. Then my mind kind of tracked back to one of the things that she listed, which was a stuffed bear, color, cherry red, a toothbrush motorized inside. And I remember that I've heard of people putting electric toothbrushes or like different stuff that would vibrate inside their stuffed animals and then like using that to masturbate. And I was like, wait a minute, this is a list of stuff that she's masturbated with. And I was like, damn, that's a bold poem. Like, that is a bold poem. And I also found it cool that one of the things that she lists in here is Victoria's Secret magazine. So that's like kind of a nod to she's also attracted to other women. And then like your kneecap cased in denim jeans. Like, that was some real shit, because I feel like people always want women's pleasure to be like this like pornographic thing with like a giant dildo, I feel like. But a lot of it I feel like is just like, you know, grinding is amazing, or, you know, whatever. Like, I don't know. I just fucking love this poem. Like, it's so bold, it's so raw, and it's also, you're confused for most of it, but then like you start to slowly get it. Like, I just think this is a really, really good poem, even though I don't know what the title has to do with it. What's onanism? Should I look that up? Oh, I guess if I had known what the word meant, then I wouldn't have been confused for the rest of the poem, because yep, it just means jacking it. But I did not know that. Wow, okay, her vocab has exceeded mine. She's on another plane. I did not know that. So that actually might have spoiled the poem before you even read it if you had known what the word meant. Also, at one point in here, she describes pussy as a beautifully folded salmon sweater. And like, I didn't know I needed that image in my life. And I also had just like never heard that. And I was like, striking image. See, I feel like in a lot of these things, she has like a lot of striking images, but she also has like a lot of like crap, if you know what I mean. Like, there's a lot of stuff that isn't good, but then within that crap, there's like one line that's like, damn. You know, like, she definitely has potential. She definitely has talent. One of my other favorite poems from here was Travis, and this is about one of her friends who was a junkie and basically like slept with older women to kind of get a place to stay. And this is a pretty common thing if you're homeless. Like, I knew a lot of people when I was homeless who would like do the same thing, who would like, you know, go home with a different person every night so they could have somewhere to sleep. And I don't know, I just really, really liked this poem. Like, it just made me think about, you know, those times and all those people that I knew, you know, who were like really good people, had really good hearts, etc., just had, you know, troubles and problems in their life. I love the last lines. And I asked him how he did it, how it didn't rip his heart to shreds. I really do love them. He told me all of them. There's also a poem in here that I thought was kind of, you know, spicy. It's called The Party, and I'm pretty sure this is sort of a poem about G-Eazy, who she met at a party, and I found this out from some like random Googling. I thought this poem was spicy. I feel like she could have some potential for writing like maybe some erotic poetry, you know? I feel like one of the worst parts of this book was the series of poems titled Bad Day, which are pretty much the same poem, but each time that she brings it back, she changes a couple of the words. And I just felt like it was all the same poem, and like I was tired of it. I really felt like that should have been cut because it just wasn't good in my opinion. But I do see how she kind of wanted to tie the collection together by scattering those throughout. Trying to give it some sort of structure, I think. Another one I really liked was Fun Girl. This one really gave me some like Bad Guy by Billie Eilish vibes. And I also think, maybe they should collab, but I also think that the rhyming actually like really worked here. I feel like it works better in songwriting to like have lines and things that rhyme, but in poetry it doesn't come off as well because you're not getting like, you know, the beautiful emotional delivery. I think poetry is a different medium, and you can really tell that she's more of a songwriter. There's also a poem in here called Mailman, where she talks about being friends like with her mailman when she was 8 years old. And if I'm interpreting the story correctly, it's not really explicitly stated, but I think that he got in trouble because he was a pedophile. I mean, that's just kind of what I figured out because he was being like super, super nice to her. And maybe I'm misunderstanding that, but that was what I got from it. And then it's like especially upsetting because later she has another poem called The Painter that was about an artist that like lived above her family. I guess they lived in like a duplex or something like that, and like either sexually assaulted or like raped her and also her cousin. And so I just found that really disturbing. I was like, that's a lot of, you know, bad experiences that you're having. And then she has another poem where she talks about sexual assault. It's called A Story Like Mine. And I love these lines that she has. I've realized that nobody is safe as long as she is alive, and every friend that I know has a story like mine. And the world tells us that we should take it as a compliment. I was like, damn, go in, girl. Like, that is the fucking truth. That's hashtag me too right there. But it just made me sad that she has so many of these like sexual assaults and things like that in her past. So the last thing I kind of want to talk about is how she talks about being poor a couple of different times in this collection. And it's interesting, the poem called Everything is really cool because it's kind of about how she didn't realize she was poor. And I feel like it's kind of about, you know, childhood, and like now she's really rich and she has everything, but she wishes she could go back to like childhood when she really did feel like that she had everything in a way. And I feel like it's just kind of showing that even like all this money and riches and success and fame doesn't make you happy if you have like this trauma and, you know, you're struggling with yourself and your life and your mental health and things like that. It's also interesting because she sort of addresses that again in a different poem called Hereditary. But I will never believe that I belong to the side with the guillotine. You should eat the rich, even if that includes me. So she's just kind of saying, even though she's rich now, she'll never feel rich. And also like, I feel like it's like, fuck celebrity, which is kind of hypocritical because like, obviously you're not like giving all your money away and, you know, living like the rest of us or anything like that. Like, I feel like it's like, I can't decide if it's like kind of trying to seem relatable, even though it's not really relatable. Like, I hate that thing that celebrities do where they try to seem relatable, but it's like, you know, you're living in a mansion, you're like protected from everything. I'm not saying that necessarily makes you happy automatically, but you have a lot more resources than the rest of us. So yeah, I don't really know how to feel about that. It's really interesting. So that's kind of my review of this poetry collection. Like I said, I don't really feel like it has no value. I definitely feel like Halsey has potential to be a good poet, but a lot of these fragments that I felt like were really good and had like a spark in them, I wouldn't really say the few poems I liked were worth reading or wading through this entire collection. So unless you're like a big fan of her, I would suggest skipping this one. So yeah, that's my review. Thank you so much for watching. If you found anything that I said helpful or interesting, please consider hitting subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.